2 disasters, 1 inventor, and the world is still not okay. Poison in the air, a hole in the sky, all of it started from one man's idea. He didn't kill anyone directly, but what he created slowly started killing all of us. And the most tragic part? He died because of his own invention. Who was he? And why did the world ignore the warning signs? This story will make you question what progress really means. The early 1900s, the world was rushing into the future. Machines, factories, and paved roads were replacing horses and dirt paths. But one small, annoying sound was still ruining the dream. Knock. 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 It wasn't someone at the door. It was the sound of engine knocking. Engine knocking happens when fuel burns too early inside the engine, before the piston is in the right place. This makes the engine shake, lose power, and wear out faster. It's a small problem, but it was stopping big progress. Car companies were desperate. They could build engines, but they couldn't control them. That's when a young man stepped in, not with a loud speech, but with a head full of ideas and hands that never stopped working. His name was Thomas Midgley Jr. The public didn't know him yet, but inside General Motors, people were already impressed. He was confident, charming, and believed one thing: every problem has a solution. But to truly understand him, we need to go back to when the world, for him, was just a toy to take apart. Thomas was born in the spring of 1889 in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. It wasn't a big city, but it was full of machines and factories. His father, Thomas Sr., was a mechanical engineer. Their home was filled with tools, blueprints, and the smell of oil and metal. Thomas grew up hearing the clink of steel and the hiss of steam. He wasn't afraid of machines. He was curious about them. While other kids played outside, Thomas took apart old clocks and toys, not to fix them, but to understand them. He once said, "If I don't know how something works, I can't trust it." His belief was simple: the world can be fixed if you're curious enough. His father taught him that science wasn't just for smart people. It was for helping people. That idea stayed with him. And after graduating from Cornell University as a mechanical engineer, Thomas carried that belief straight into the lab. At General Motors, the challenge was waiting. Knocking wasn't just noise. It was a threat to the entire car industry. If he could fix this, he wouldn't just help machines. He would help the future. He began experimenting, one chemical after another. Most failed, he tried again and again, until one day, he found something that didn't look special, but worked perfectly: tetraethyl lead. This chemical helped the fuel burn at the right moment, so the engine could run smoothly without knocking. And it worked. Engines that used to growl now hummed quietly. Cars became faster, stronger, more efficient, all from a few drops of clear liquid. General Motors was thrilled. Standard Oil joined in. DuPont too. They began mass-producing leaded gasoline. They called it ethyl. Gas stations changed their signs. Cars started driving smoother. The auto industry was booming. And Midgley? He became a star. He was invited to conferences, interviewed in magazines, praised as a genius. But there was something he didn't tell the public. During his experiments, Midgley started feeling sick. Dizzy, weak, his hands trembled. Signs of lead poisoning. But he laughed it off. "I probably just need more rest," he said. Maybe he believed that. Or maybe he just trusted his own mind too much. Because while the world celebrated, no one realized that a poison was already spreading. Midgley stood on stage, smiling. People called him a hero, but he didn't know yet that his greatest invention was also the most expensive mistake in human history. In 1923, car engines were smoother than ever. The knocking problem that had troubled the automotive world was finally solved, and the man behind it, Thomas Midgley Jr., was praised everywhere. His invention, tetraethyl lead, or TL, was a lead-based chemical added to gasoline to prevent early explosions inside the engine. It helped fuel burn at the right time, which made engines more efficient, powerful, and quiet. This leaded gasoline was sold under the name ethyl. and it quickly became the new standard around the world. But while people celebrated quiet engines, no one noticed that something else was spreading, a poison in the air. In New Jersey, the Maintel factory, owned by Standard Oil, began full production. But soon, the factory workers started getting sick. Some had shaking hands and lost control of their muscles. Others became confused, paranoid, and even hallucinated. One worker jumped from a second-story window, saying butterflies with metal wings were chasing him. Another screamed through the night, biting himself because he believed bugs were crawling under his skin. 5 workers died in just 2 months. Dozens more were sent to psychiatric hospitals. Doctors diagnosed it as severe lead poisoning. Inside the factory, workers gave it a new nickname, the House of Butterflies, a name that sounded beautiful, but came from fear. So how did this happen? Workers were poisoned in 3 main ways. 1. Breathing in the lead vapors. Tel was mixed and packaged indoors with poor ventilation. Toxic gas stayed in the air and was inhaled into their lungs. 2. Through the skin. Tel is a liquid that easily passes through the skin. Workers didn't wear gloves or protective clothing. 3. By accident during eating or drinking. Some workers ate without washing their hands. Lead entered their bodies through their mouths. Even worse, some workers were taught to smell the liquid to check its strength, without knowing that just one breath could damage the brain. When newspapers started reporting the deaths, the public began to ask serious questions. Is ethyl safe? Is this chemical killing people? And all eyes turned to one man, Thomas Midgley Jr. To calm everyone down, Midgley gave a public demonstration. In front of reporters, he poured Tel onto his bare hands, then slowly inhaled the vapors for nearly 1 full minute. I could do this every day, he smiled. People clapped. The headlines praised his courage, and ethyl stayed on the market. But what they didn't write in the newspapers was that Midgley became sick shortly after. He quietly stepped away from the ethyl project and never touched Tel again. While the world kept selling leaded gasoline, another voice tried to speak the truth. Dr. Alice Hamilton, a toxicologist from Harvard, had studied lead's effects on the human body for years. She explained that lead is not like other poisons. Once it enters the body, it doesn't leave. It stays in the bones, blood, and especially the brain. Children were the most vulnerable. Lead exposure caused lower IQ, behavior problems, and long-term brain damage. This is not a necessary invention, she warned. It's slow murder. But her voice was ignored. She was a woman. She was independent. And she was fighting 3 giants, General Motors, Standard Oil, and DuPont. The U.S. government briefly banned ethyl. But under pressure from these companies, the ban was lifted, and the poison returned to the pumps. In big cities, tiny lead particles filled the air. They were too small to see, but easy to breathe. From the lungs, lead entered the blood. From the blood, it reached the brain. Lead didn't kill quickly. It killed slowly, and it hurt children the most. IQ scores dropped. Kids acted differently. Their futures were stolen without a single warning. Cars drove better, but children grew up damaged. And the worst part? No one noticed, because this poison was quiet. While ethyl kept making money, Midgley quietly disappeared from public life. After his famous demonstration, his health got worse. He suffered from classic symptoms of lead poisoning: tremors, mental fatigue, and constant weakness. He never spoke out, never explained. But what was clear, he stopped appearing, that he stopped leading. He walked away from the ethyl project and never returned. The man once celebrated for saving engines was now silent, and he knew, deep inside, that no one wanted to hear the truth anymore. Midgley once said, "Every problem has a solution." But this time, his solution became a much bigger problem, wrapped in progress, hidden in profit, and the world had no idea that his next invention would reach into the sky and tear a hole in it. After disappearing from public view, Thomas Midgley Jr. stayed behind the scenes. He was no longer standing on scientific stages, but his mind was still working. Maybe he wanted to fix what he had done, or maybe he just wasn't finished yet. This time his goal was not cars. Not big factories, but something closer to home. At that time, fridges and air conditioners used dangerous gases like ammonia, methyl chloride, and propane. These gases were toxic. Some were explosive, and if they leaked, they could kill people. Many accidents had already happened. Children had died because of gas leaks. Houses exploded. People needed something safer. And once again, Midgley tried to help. He worked with a team from Frigidaire, a division of General Motors that made cooling machines. Their goal was simple: find a gas that is safe, non-flammable, and still cools well. After many experiments, they found a new chemical compound, a mix of chlorine, fluorine, and carbon. It was called chlorofluorocarbon, or CFC. The first version was named Freon 12. Freon seemed like a miracle. No smell, no fire risk, no poison, and very stable, even in hot or cold weather. The world welcomed it with open arms. Finally, a safe cooling gas. To prove it, Midgley stood in front of reporters. He inhaled Freon from a tube, then blew it out over a lit candle. The flame went out. The room was silent. Then applause. "This gas is safe," he said. "For homes. For the future." Freon was soon used in fridges, air conditioners, and even factories. But the story didn't stop there. Other industries saw a new opportunity. In the years that followed, products like perfumes, hairsprays, air fresheners, and cleaning sprays had a problem. Their old spray gases smell bad. Some were explosive. Most didn't work well in hot weather. Freon, especially CFC 11 and CFC 12, was the perfect solution. Safe, no smell, stable, able to spray liquids in a soft and even mist very quickly. Freon was not only cooling the world, but also spraying into homes everywhere. But that's where the real danger began, because Freon was too stable. It didn't break down near the ground. It went up, past the clouds, past the storms, until it reached the stratosphere, and high above the earth. Freon changed. In 1974, two scientists, Mario Molina and Sherwood Rowland, published a shocking study. CFCs, when hit by strong sunlight, break apart. They release chlorine atoms, and each chlorine atom destroys ozone molecules, one by one, up to hundreds of thousands. Ozone isn't just a gas. It's a shield in our atmosphere. It protects every living thing from deadly ultraviolet rays. Without ozone, skin burns easily. Cancer risk increases. Crops can fail. Oceans are harmed. Children can go blind from UV light, and all of this started from a gas once called safe. In 1985, scientists found a giant hole in the ozone layer right over the South Pole. It wasn't a crack. It was a wound in the sky. And the cause? Not war, not bombs, not a natural disaster, but Freon. Thomas Midgley Jr. never knew. He had already died before the truth came out. Before people realized that two of his inventions, once seen as great solutions, had created two of the worst environmental disasters in modern history. Now, the Earth had two major wounds. One in the ground, one in the sky, and both came from the same place. The same man, Thomas Midgley Jr., a man who wanted to save the world. But hurt even more. The year was 1940. This was the same man who once stood with pride, holding test tubes, lighting flames, and smiling as he said, "It's safe." Now his body couldn't move. He was weak, lying still, paralyzed by one word people feared deeply back then: polio, a virus that attacks the nerves. And in just a few weeks, Midgley lost the ability to move. But he didn't give up. From his bed, he became inventor again. His hands were paralyzed, but his mind kept working. He designed a system of ropes and pulleys installed above his bed. It wasn't high-tech, but helped him sit up, shift positions, or move around without needing help from others. It wasn't about comfort. It was about dignity. He wanted to look strong in front of his wife, Carrie, and their son, Thomas Midgley III. But one morning, on November 2nd, 1944, Carrie walked into the room as usual. She carried a cup of tea. She called his name gently. No answer. Her husband's body hung still, suspended in the ropes he had built. Not moving, not breathing. It wasn't because the device failed. It wasn't suicide. His body had simply become too weak to survive, and his invention couldn't save him. There was no major news, no television report, just one quiet line in the morning paper. Thomas Midgley Jr. has died. And life went on, but history never fully let go of his name. Years later, scientists started looking back at Midgley's inventions, and they found his traces in the air, in the ground, and even in people's bodies. Lead gasoline, linked to brain damage in children. Freon gas destroyed the ozone layer and caused a global crisis. All of it started with one man, one brilliant mind who believed too much in progress and didn't ask enough. What will this do to the future? His name isn't in school textbooks. There's no holiday to honor him, but his legacy still flows in the air, into our lungs, into the sky above us, hidden in places we can't see, but we can feel. Midgley never wanted to hurt the world. He only wanted to help. And maybe that's what makes his story even more tragic. The sky never shouted, but slowly, it changed color. The warmth wasn't friendly anymore. The air no longer felt fresh. And without knowing, we grew up in a world that quietly grew older. Because of two inventions once praised as miracles. Thomas Midgley Jr. never meant to leave a disaster behind. But history doesn't care about intentions. It only remembers the consequences. Years passed after Midgley died. But strangely, only after his death did the world truly see the danger of what he created. Leaded gasoline, still used by millions of cars around the world. And silently, it worked its way into the human body. It wasn't like a bomb. It wasn't a sudden disaster. It was slow, quiet, and terrifying. Children in big cities started to show strange problems. Learning became harder. They were emotional. They couldn't focus. Scientists finally discovered the reason. Lead was damaging their brains. It entered through the air, through dust, through blood. All from a solution once meant to protect engines. At the same time, the sky began to tear open. A giant hole appeared in the ozone layer above Antarctica. Dangerous ultraviolet rays began to pour through, burning skin, damaging life. And all of this came from room sprays, from hairspray, from refrigerators, from air conditioners. From Freon, once called the safest chemical in the world. One molecule of CFC could destroy thousands of ozone molecules. And for years, we kept spraying it into the air. No one warned us early enough. When the world finally woke up, it was already everywhere. Scientists were shocked. Governments held emergency meetings. People started asking, how do we let this happen? The answer wasn't simple. But one name kept appearing in the reports. Thomas Midgley Jr. Finally, the world started to take action. In 1987, world leaders signed the Montreal Protocol, a global promise to stop using CFC. By 1996, leaded gasoline was banned in the US. Other countries followed. We searched for safer alternatives. For gasoline, we began using ethanol and new additives that didn't poison the brain. For cooling, we used HFCs and newer chemicals that were safer for the atmosphere. These steps were important, but the damage had already been done. Midgley's legacy couldn't be erased that easily. Today, his name is rarely mentioned. And if it is, it's often with a dark tone. The most dangerous single organism in Earth's history. But if we look deeper, we see something more human than good or bad. Midgley wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He wasn't a villain. He didn't build weapons. He was just a man trying to fix a problem. But in doing so, he accidentally created a bigger one. And isn't that a very human thing to do? Now, we live in a new age, with green energy, clean tech, and electric cars. Are we truly wiser? Or are we just repeating old mistakes in new forms? That is Midgley's real legacy. Not just the pollution, but a warning about the thin line between progress and destruction. If this story made you reflect about science, good intentions, and human responsibility, hit that subscribe button. We'll keep exploring stories from the past, so we can make better choices for the future. And if you believe every invention should come with deep understanding, give this video a like and share it with someone who hasn't heard this story. You can also suggest new stories in the comments below. And if you have a different opinion, let's talk about it, because discussion helps us grow and stories help us remember. Thanks for watching. And next time you spray perfume, remember, the sky still remembers too.